Hello again. Last time we met, we spoke about Glenluiart House, and I featured the lady who had it built, Mrs. Monteith, and I promised that we'd come to the churchyard where she's buried, and here we are today, and she lies just behind me here with her husband, the Reverend John Monteith. Now, John Monteith was a very influential minister in this parish because he was preaching really at a time of great importance to the Church of Scotland when it was attempting to claw back many of the members that it lost after the disruption of the 1840s when the church split. And he did this because he had a great belief in looking after not his parishioners, not the members of his church, but the members of the parish as a whole. So he engaged with everyone. And he did this because he'd worked at a parish in Glasgow, in the Barony Church, in fact, where there was a strong working class population. And he knew that this was the key to growing membership in many ways, and that they had particular needs. And in doing this, he engaged the services of his wife, Mrs. Monteith, or Ellen Maria Neve, a lady from Kent, who was absolutely the ideal person to have as a minister's wife. And she was very much the philanthropist here in the village. She did all sorts of things to make people's lives better. For example, school children often had to trudge a long way to get to school in the morning. And when you think that many of the glens that lead into this village are 7 or 8 miles long, they often arrived and were hungry, particularly on a cold winter's day. So she and other ladies in the parish went to great efforts to make soup. They also conducted a series of activities around sales of work to raise money for various charities, and held bazaars, and took part in organising children's games and all sorts of activities. She also was a great person in terms of visiting the sick and the dying in the parish, so she fulfilled a very, very important function. And crucially, in many ways, she altered the goalposts, because it was tradition in Scotland that when a minister died, his wife left the parish, because it wasn't seen as the done thing to maybe be treading on the toes of the new minister's wife. But she refused to do this. And she moved out of the manse, and she rented a local house until she came into some money on the death of her father, and that's when she built Glenluiart. And sadly, she didn't live for more than a decade in Glenluiart, because she didn't have the best of health herself, and we find her in the winter going to the French coast to get a little bit of better weather. And it's very wet and damp in this part of Scotland, so that's very understandable. And she died in 1912, and the village was really devastated by this. And there was a big funeral, which was held in the church beside me here, and she was buried here alongside her husband. And ultimately, her daughter Maud would be buried here as well. And Maud's an interesting character too, because she also followed very much in her family, in her mother's footsteps. Her sister was perhaps a little bit more in the social side of things, but Maud very much engaged in village charities, and slightly, I think, to the sadness of her family, she got involved in spiritualism later in life. But that was perhaps because two of her brothers had been killed within a week of each other in the First World War, and there's also a memorial tablet to them here as well. So this is very much a family grave, and you'll see in the style of the Celtic cross, and this design, Celtic design, was quite important to people in that period. It was very much part of the kind of arts and crafts look of what was going on in Scotland at that time. So I think a very important lady, fulfilling important functions at a time of change in British history, particularly at the beginning of the 20th century, when the Liberal governments are enacting social change. And she, in fact, becomes the very first female member of the parish council, which is how we come to know a little bit about her, because usually most women in history have disappeared without trace. Thank you, and if you've enjoyed this, it would be great if you subscribed. See you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.